In this section of the course, I'll be covering how to interact with databases from a Java application. I'll be primarily focusing on connecting to and communicating with a relational database. I'll show you how to connect to a database using a connection string and a special object called a Java database driver. We'll get information from the database through a database language called Structured Query Language or SQL. I'll demonstrate how to execute SQL statements as strings against tables in the database using Java support and how to process the results we get back from these types of queries. I'll also cover executing parameterized statements using Java's prepared statement, which allow SQL statements to be reusable, more flexible, and less prone to some well-known security issues. Many database management systems support a built-in procedural language as well. This means there may be functions stored with the database that you can use to get data or perform some action rather than actually writing SQL code to do it. I'll be showing you how to make calls to these database stored procedures with Java's callable statement. Finally, we'll examine different object relational mapping or ORM technologies used by popular Java frameworks to handle basic boilerplate interactions with databases. To do all of this, we'll need a database to test against. I originally was using SQLite for this section of the course, but have decided to switch to MySQL for several reasons. There were other options, like selecting an in-memory database like H2, or I could have chosen alternative relational databases like Postgres, which is free and open source, or Microsoft's SQL Server, which has a free version. I decided on MySQL for several reasons. First, it's free and downloaded from Oracle, and the installation isn't too difficult. Second, I think it's important to learn about callable statements, and for that, we needed a database that supports stored procedures. There are workarounds for H2 and SQLite, but I felt the workarounds might have been more confusing to students. Third, I offer a beginner's course in SQL which also uses MySQL, so if you want to learn more, you'll be in a perfect position to take that course. Finally, MySQL is a popular industry standard. On this slide, I'm showing you several surveys of the popularity of marketplace databases. The first is Stack Overflow's annual survey, which solicits feedback from developers on what they use professionally. This survey is limited to respondents, so it could be argued it's skewed towards professionals who are just more likely to take such a survey. The second is from Statista, and the third from DB Engines, which are similar and have similar results. The last survey polls the internet for monthly statistics using the number of mentions of the system on websites, the frequency of technical discussions, and the number of job offers as part of their scoring system. Make sure to check out these surveys and others if you're interested or if you're trying to make this decision for yourself. However you look at this feedback, MySQL is squarely near the top, so that's another reason I chose it. Finally, just because the course will be taught using MySQL, this doesn't mean that you have to use it. You're welcome to use whichever database you want, especially if you have another already installed and have experience there. I'll be providing scripts to create a specific database schema for MySQL, which could be tweaked for your database. In addition, I'll show you several different connection strings to connect to different databases. I'll be making an effort to use ANSI SQL, a standard set of commands which most databases should support. I'll try to avoid vendor-specific SQL statements or point them out when I can. There are good reasons to use ANSI SQL in your Java code. Doing so lets you swap the database engine by simply changing your connection string. This does sometimes happen as corporations decide the best way to house their data based on their own unique situation and as technologies change and compete with one another. I'll explain all of this in more detail as we proceed. Okay, so let's move forward. The next 3 videos will be the MySQL installation videos, so pick the one appropriate for your operating system.